Batman The Long Halloween Part 1 is obviously the first part of the animated adaptation of the classic graphic novel Batman The Long Halloween, which I just finished. I reviewed the whole thing yesterday on my channel. Make sure to definitely check that out. And I watched this film as soon as I finished the novel because I was really interested. I saw that Stuckman reviewed it and then Jeremy Johns did. And I was like, okay, I'm interested. I hope it's going to be really good. And I definitely enjoyed it. It stars Jensen Ackles as Batman or Bruce Wayne, Josh Duhammel, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, as Harvey Dent, Naya Rivera in one of her last roles, rest in peace, as Catwoman, and Troy Baker as Joker, and tells the story of a killer who only commits crimes on holidays. Therefore, they call this unknown killer Holiday, and Batman, Commissioner Gordon, and Harvey Dent all try to take down this killer. Now, I was really excited to see the adaptation because, as I said in my review for Batman The Long Halloween, it is easily the best comic book I've read so far. I've only really read 3 Batman comics, Batman Year One, The Batman Who Laughs, and now this one. I have reviews for all of them. I'll link them up here, and I've loved all of them so far. This one is easily the best one, so I was excited to see how they were going to adapt it since the story is so grand and so great, and they did split this into 2 parts, and I feel like they easily could have made this like a 2.5 hour, 2 hour, 45 minute kind of super cut of it all, and maybe they will in the future. Maybe somebody out there will, but I will say for what I've seen so far from this, obviously it is part 1, it was very good. I do have some problems with it, which I will get into, but there's a lot of things that I love. But I think one of the best things about it is something that most people have said in their reviews. I've seen a few of them, and that's that they use thicker outlines for the characters to really make them stand out more, and I think it really works. Like it really contrasts with Gotham, because Gotham is such like a dirty, really eerie place, especially in this comic. Like it's a much darker Batman story, and that's what I really love. And because they use the thicker outlines, it really works, and the action is also super thrilling, and also the sound design. There's a certain scene here which I won't say the context of it, but something blows up. If you've read the comic or seen this, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and the sound design was amazing. Like you can kind of hear it go whoosh, and kind of expand in the explosion. That's what I really love. The gunshots are loud, they really work. Everything about the sound design is really good, and the voice acting across the board is honestly pretty good. Jensen Ackles as Batman is someone I don't think I'm really familiar with, but I thought he did a really good job. I think this is a younger Batman, or at least that's what I kind of got from the story, because he already has made kind of enemies here, but he's also kind of newer to the detective thing. That's what this film and obviously the comic, obviously, and that's that Batman really has to become a detective here, more so than just someone who beats up the bad guys, as I said in my review of the comic book. And I thought he was really good as both Bruce Wayne and Batman, and Josh Duhammel, I don't know if I'm saying that right. If I'm not, I apologize, was really great as Harvey. Obviously, this book really focuses a lot on Harvey. On the cover here, it says The Long Halloween is more than a comic book, it's an epic tragedy, and that quote's from Christopher Nolan, you know, the Dark Knight trilogy, greatest trilogy of all time, and that is obviously dealing with Harvey Dent, and I think that he was really fantastic. Naya Rivera, who plays Catwoman, sadly passed away in 2020, but she was really great here. So I do have a little nitpick with Catwoman that I'll get out of the way. In the graphic novel, she has an incredible suit. It's probably my favorite Catwoman design so far, at least for her suit. It's like this purple look, and even like the way that she moves and everything, and even like the look of her cowl or headpiece, whatever you want to call it, looks like a cat. Whereas in here, they take it and just kind of make it that black, sleek, kind of black and gray style that we've seen before, which again, I don't dislike. I think it works really well, but for me, I personally prefer the purple one, and I wish they would have stuck with it in that way. But for her performance, it was really great. And Troy Baker, I heard Jeremy Johns say this, and I'm just going to totally rip off what he said here. Troy Baker is basically Mark Hamill when you can't get Mark Hamill, and that's not a bad thing at all. Troy Baker is amazing, but he sounds like he's doing an impression of Mark Hamill, which is great, because obviously Mark Hamill is one of the best Jokers, easily the best animated one, I think, and he sounds a lot like him, but you can tell it's not him. But that's not a bad thing, because obviously Mark Hamill can't always play the Joker, and Kevin Conroy can't always play Batman or Bruce Wayne, but I think it really worked. And as I said in my review of the comic book, I'm going to keep saying that in this video, I apologize, Joker has a very kind of eccentric and different look, where his smile looks like broken and shattered piano keys in a way, whereas in here they kind of made him look more human, which I think works, and I can totally understand why. It's something that works more so in a comic book versus an actual adaptation with other humans that move, and I totally get it. Like, I kind of wish they kind of stretched it a little bit, but again, those are like tiny nitpicks. This isn't the Catwoman thing, there's just tiny nitpicks. And Billy Burke as Commissioner Gordon, really great. I mean, everybody across the board was really great. I just kind of covered covered the main ones here. They're all very good. There are a few issues with the movie, and one of them is that it kind of can feel unnatural in a way, and there's one scene, it's actually the scene that Chris Stuckman showed in his review. I watched this, then I watched Chris Stuckman's review after, and I noticed this while watching the movie. Sometimes with like their hands, they just move it really weirdly, and it only really stood out to me in one scene. It's the scene that Chris Stuckman showed, but like they just kind of move their hands like this, some of the characters, and I was like, that's kind of weird. And again, these are like small nitpicks. I don't really know, and I don't know what the reason for that is. I won't really go into that because obviously that is something that Chris Stuckman made a big point on. You can go watch his review. I mean, you probably already have, but I will say my biggest problem is kind of the pacing of this movie. But it's not just that. There are like small pauses in between the character talking that just makes some of the scenes feel kind of long. Like when they're talking to the calendar man, who obviously plays like a small role here, sometimes when they're talking to him, they'll just all pause for like too long. It'll just be like, yeah, so he's doing this, and I'm just like, are they stretching it out to make it feature length? Like, I've seen the Killing Joke movie. I saw it back in like 2018, and I really didn't like it back then, so I think I'll enjoy it more now, or at least the comic book. But I know that they added scenes there, and they didn't add too much in this. They added a few, and I won't go into them because it could go into spoiler territory, and I'm not going to spoil anything here. But at times, it does make the scenes feel a little bit long and like a little bit dragged out in that way, where I was like, why are they, what is this? It just didn't really feel natural in the way. That kind of goes back to the thing where when people talk, they don't take 10-second pauses or 5-second pauses in the thing. But I will say, the movie was very entertaining. I was engaged through almost the entire thing. Again, there were a few scenes where I was kind of like, okay, can we kind of get going with this? And I liked most of the added things. There were a few things that were like obviously added to stretch it out. I think a lot of the scenes for the most part worked in the way of kind of stretching this out to 1 hour and 25, which I think it is. And I'm very excited for part 2, and the animation is just gorgeous here. Batman the Long Halloween Part 1 is a solid adaptation so far. By using thicker outlines, they really made these characters pop out more. It does suffer from some pacing issues, and it can drag at times, but I'm very excited to see if Part 2 can bring it home. I recommend this one if you're a fan of the comic book like me, and I'm going to give Batman the Long Halloween Part 1 a 3.5 out of 5. I do think this will work better when you have part 1 and part 2, like they just go, like if someone super cuts it together, I do think it'll work better because there, you know, when it ends, you're like, oh, I just want to see the rest of this. And yes, you can go and just read and know what happens. And yes, I know I went into this knowing what happened. And yes, I've said and yes a million times there. But I want to know if you've seen this because I know not everybody has. And I know that the DC like adaptations are a little hit and miss at times. I haven't really seen that many. Like this is kind of the first one mainly. Like as I said before, I have seen the Killing Joke movie, but that was like 3 or 4 years ago, so it's been a while. I just don't really remember liking it, or at least not liking some scenes. I have to give it another shot after I finish the comic book. And if you've seen this one, please tell me what you think of it down below. Are you excited for part 2? And thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Over and out.